Moshe clearly holds like Rabbi Yochanan, the designation is enough, and you'll need B'chai Misa in order for them to sacrifice your life to save everyone else. However, the Rambam argues on this. He says, if they specify them, Amru, Tnulanu, Ploni, One, Ragas, Kulchan, give us so and so, or else we'll kill everyone. Im Haya Mechuyav Misa, Keshev Ben Bechri, Yidnu Osolam. Only if he's Chai Misa, like Shev Ben Bechri, are they able to hand him over to save everyone else. This is not Lechatchila. However, if the guy is not Chai Misa, then you're not able to give over a single person from Eretz Yisrael. The Rambam clearly holds by like Rish Lakish that not only do you have to be designated, but you also have to be Chayiv Misa, clearly arguing in Moshe. This poses a problem in Moshe. Another question in Moshe is the Ramah in Shulchan Aruch Yoredea Hilchos Avodas Kochavim Siman Kufnan Zayin Sif Aleph, who says, "Ovdi Kochavim Sh'Amul Yisrael." A guy says to a Jew, "Tnu lanu echa me kam ne'erim." Give us one of you and we'll kill him. V'lo yitnu lahem echa meham el in kein yichdu v'amru tnu lanu ploni. You're not able to give over any Jew unless they specify give over so and so, give over him. However, another opinion is that you're not able to give over the person unless he's Chai Misa, like Shev Mechri. So the Ramah just lists both opinions. It doesn't really seem to hold by one of them. Therefore, in such a case, we'd have to go by the stricter, more stringent opinion, which is Rish Lakish, which not only do you have to specify the person, but you also have to be Chai Misa. So these problems posed to Moshe has a second approach. He says that really the reason that you're able to sacrifice the second twin in order to save the first twin's life is because the case of Rodef. Now, why is the case of Rodef? Because really the entire heart, the six-chambered heart, is resting inside the first twin's stomach. First twin. However, the second twin is really just a parasite. It's feeding off of the first one. It's attached to him, and therefore it's causing the first one to die. The one heart is not strong enough to circulate both of their bodies. And therefore, because of this, the first one is going to end up dying. However, if you do a procedure, you could save the first person's life. So what's a good example of this? A good mashal is a case of an airplane. Right? Airplane crashes down, and a person jumps out of the airplane with a parachute. There's a parachute flying to safety, and all of a sudden another guy jumps out and grabs onto the first person's leg. The parachute is not strong enough to hold both of them. They start tumbling down to earth. Now the question arises, is the first person whose is his parachute, is he allowed to kick off the second person in order to save his life? Now we all know the answer, yeah. Why? Because the second person is a rodef. The first person was alive, he was going to safety, and the second person came on and he's threatening his life. Therefore, you're allowed to kick him off in order to save your own life. So too in this case, the second twin is latched onto the first twin, and therefore is causing the first one to die. If you do a procedure to take off the second twin, you'd potentially be able to save the first person's life. So, a couple sources which prove Moshe's point. First, we look at Mishnah Mesachos Olos Perek Zayin Mishnah Vav. Ha'isha shahem maksha leiled. That a woman's having a difficult pregnancy. Mechatkan is holad.
Flood.
V'mei motino so avrim. So you're allowed to go in and cut up the fetus and take it out limb by limb. Since her life is more important than his. Yotzei Ruba. However, if a majority of the child comes out, you're not allowed to touch it. Because we don't differentiate between two different people. Meaning, who says her blood is redder than his. So what that means that once the head comes out, that we can no longer say that you're allowed to kill the fetus, and now we say that in dochim nefesh nefesh is something we'll get to soon. So now we have the source in Sanhedrin and Ayin Beis Amud Beis, which we learned this year. So Isvei Rechista Satrafuna, Yatsa Rosho, if the head came out, ain't no gimbo. You can't touch it, can't do anything. Lefi she'ain dochim nefesh nefesh, because we don't differentiate between one person and another person. B'amai. Why? Rodef was a rodef. Why? What's the difference, right? What's the difference between when he's in the womb and when he's out of the womb? When he's in the womb, you're allowed to kill him because he's a rodef. When he's outside the womb, when he comes out, what's the difference? What changed? So the answer, Shani has something's different there. The Mishmaya Karatfil. because Hashem is a rodif, and therefore it's out of control. So now the Rambam, he works more on this. So Harezu mitzvahs lo sa'asa shelo lichos al nefesh rodif. That you shouldn't be lenient on the cases of rodif, and in such a case you should be very strict to make sure that the rodif is taken care of. Leficha, therefore, the Chacham said, she'uvra she'imikasher leiled mutter lichto ta'uver. So in a case where a difficult pregnancy, you're allowed to kill the fetus. Whether it's with medicine or chopping up with your hands. Because he adds in, because the fetus is like a rodef fence going after the mother to kill her, which is not explicitly said in the Gemara. Rambam's adding that in. However, if the head comes out, in Nogimbo, you can't touch it, you can't do anything. Because we don't differentiate between one person and another person. And now the Rambam changes the mashma karat fileh, he changed it to v'zehu tiva shalom. Right? And this is the normal way of the world. So, I think the obvious question that everyone has is, what changes from inside the womb to outside the womb? Why inside the womb do we say you're allowed to kill the fetus because it's a rodef? However, the second it comes out, we say, no, this is normal way of the world. You can't touch it, right? Hashem is the rodef. So I think the answer is because we say that when the fetus is inside the womb, it's totally relying on the mother. The mother's nutrients goes through placenta into the fetus. Everything the fetus gets, its entire existence is because of the mother. If the mother dies, the fetus dies. Its entire existence is totally reliant on the mother. The second the head pops out, the fetus becomes its own person. It's relying on itself. It now is a separate being. That is why, once it comes out, it's no longer that it's a rodef against the mother. Now, the child is a rodef against the mother, but the mother is also a rodef against the newborn child. They're two separate people. And we say that when there's a mutual rodef, when there's one rodef against another, we let it alone, we don't do anything, we let it play out by itself. Rav Tandler says, based on this, that Rav Moshe Feinstein compares the case of our case of conjoined twins to this classic case of survival between a mother and a newborn child. The second twin has no independent ability to survive. It's totally relying on the first twin. It's not his heart. It's the first twin's heart. The first twin has the heart embedded in him. However, the second twin is latching on and is like a parasite, just relying on the first twin. The blood circulation, the nutrients, everything from the first twin. Therefore, in such a case, since he's a rodef, you would be able to potentially sacrifice the second twin in order to save the first twin's life. Now, it's very important to know that before passing, Moshe called up the doctor many times to clearly clarify that it was in fact true that the second twin was really totally reliant on the first twin. Because otherwise, the entire case would have no basis, because you can't say rodef unless it isn't true that the second twin is really totally relying on the first twin. However, even on the second hara, Reb Povarsky asks another question of Moshe. He says, in the case of Olos, once the baby's head comes out, you can't touch the baby, because according to the Rambam, this is the way of nature. Povarsky argues that this parasitic twin is not a rodef, since it's an act of nature, meaning you can't say that it's a rodef if it's really what we just said in the Gemara, Tivo Shalom. If it's Tivo Shalom, then the whole concept of rodef disappears. So this would strongly challenge Moshe's second hara. Povarsky then gives us his own shita, which he lists in the Bad Kodesh. He says that he considers the second twin to be a nephil. A nephil is a baby that won't be able to survive more than 30 days. And since it's a nephil, it doesn't have a status of its own life. Since it's not really considered its own being, it doesn't have its own life. In such a case, you would be able to sacrifice it to save the full twin, the first twin, who had its own life. So, just to summarize everything we did, we went through the halachos. We went through the halachos of conjoined twins in the early history. We talked about whether or not they each had wears tefillin, bris milah, or they get Yerusha, and other such cases. And I just wanted to say that some consider conjoined twins to be a kloa, a curse. It's a really terrible thing. It's an unfortunate circumstance. And we should be zocheh that such terrible circumstances never happen to us.